Morning, guys. Welcome back to the Song of Songs study. So we weren't on last week with that, but we're back and really excited about today. Some of the stuff that Danny's going to bring to us. We were just chatting a little bit before we started the show this morning, and I am really eager to see what we're going to talk about today from Song of Songs. It's chapter 4, I believe, verse 9. Is that correct,
Yes.
Danny?
Yes. I
Okay.
really hope I can get to that because I actually have a lot of things I want to say before, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try to zip through it. You know
Okay.
me, I have a lot to say, so.
Well, ready when you are.
Awesome. So, yes, I do want to get to the Song of Songs verse, but I felt so inspired to share just kind of like topically about this idea of Eros love. I just feel so inspired to bring it forth in the conversation. Um, I guess maybe Jeremiah and I have a reputation for, being unhindered to kind of go after some topics maybe others don't want to touch. And so I think Eros falls in line with that. So, but yeah, it's almost Valentine's Day, Saturday, right? I
Yeah.
think so. And so I want us to understand more about romantic love, okay? Um, Honestly, maybe you've noticed, but I'm a lady who likes to celebrate romantic love all the time. So it's like Valentine's Day is my holiday. Let's go, you know? I'm like the Santa Claus of Valentine's Day, maybe. We'll see. But anyway, so I want to talk about arrows and I want to investigate that. I want to look at like what are these thoughts that historically have given us, this understanding of Eros and romantic love and Cupid. Where does he come from? He's a big part of the Valentine's Day holiday. Are we even allowed to talk about this, guys? Is there anything about this in the Bible? Like, let's look at it. Let's see what's going on here. Let's let's have an open invitation to dive into some things that maybe the church views as taboo, Like, don't touch that. That's unacceptable. Like, who is this lady? Is this like some angel of light just trying to lead us all into sexual immorality? Is like that my big bad evil scheme here? And so like I just want to speak to that for a minute and just give my own, I guess, like tell you guys how I've been spending my opportunity for choices. Like when I was in high school, I wasn't saved my first year of high school, and I fooled around with a couple boys, and then I very quickly learned the bitter taste of being used, and I didn't want anything else to do with that, and I became aware, and the Holy Spirit was convicting me, and he sent a friend along to tell me, well, she said you need to go to church. That's a really common way that people try to say, like, you need God in your life, so go find him at church. That was, but I I knew in my heart, because the Holy Spirit was convicting me already, that I did need to find God. And so I took her advice and I went to church. And I was, saved not long after that. And then I found like the true lover, like the true source of love. And I fell in love with him. And I remember walking around my high school feeling like I was like literally walking on the clouds. Like if you've ever been in love, that's kind of a sensation that you can experience, like you're floating. So I really fell in love with Jesus. He was my husband. I knew that right away. And I kind of felt like I was like having a honeymoon period with him. And so I learned pretty early on in my teenage years that I did not enjoy the sting of sexual immorality. And I became a girl who wanted to have dignity pretty early on. And so I've had sex with one man, and that's my husband, who I've been married to for almost 19 years. So when it comes to being a messenger of the conversation of something about like passionate, romantic, erotic love, like just wanted to give you guys my history. And I'm not righteous because of how many people I have or haven't had sex with. There's a lot of ministers who have um, a longer list, a longer story, a bigger story of like their sexual experience than me, and their testimony and their heart is just as valid. We're not made righteous by our sexual encounters, our sexual relations. I just think that's really important because the purity culture brought so much toxicity into the mindsets, kind of like weaving that religious nonsense into our understanding, somehow like bringing the idea that there's righteousness by sexual prudery, and so I just want to like, I have a freedom heart and I want us all to know the truth, who's Jesus, and be set free from anything that is hindering us having complete enjoyment of our righteous state. And because he earned that for us. It's a gift. So we're just free to enjoy it now. But there's just so many lies and fallacies and false understandings that put people in shame and bondage. And when it comes to our sexuality, it is difficult to touch it because sexuality is powerful. It's a power. It's a human appetite. And when you get love involved with that, you got a lot going on there, and it's very powerful. And so, you know, it's like a fire. If you're going to be starting a fire, and this is something we do in my yard because we have to burn our own burn pile because we live in the country. You have to be careful when you're starting a fire. And so I get it. I get it that these topics are they can ignite desire or whatever, but I want us to know that we're free to have a conversation. I think it's really healthy. Sometimes my middle school son's friends watch my stuff. They've gotten interested in it, and so I want to invite them too, like as they're blossoming in their sexuality. Maybe not blossoming, but starting off. I don't know, the budding. Budding is the word. Budding, and I want to give them a voice that is rooted in Jesus. So I have a righteous heart. I'm 40 years old, so I've been engaged in sexual activity long enough to have some thoughts about it, some experiences about it. I've tasted the bitterness of the sinful side of it, and I want us, to have freedom to think. Think about what we're believing. Think about what we're hearing. Think about what's swirling around in the world. Think about what kind of accusation is coming at us, and are we even aware? Are we able to discern an accusation from truth? Are we able to connect to our heart? Are we able to even maybe imagine that eros comes from God? I mean, could you even imagine that? So let's dive in and ask some questions and really just give ourselves permission to think about sex in a way that's free and is separated from shame. Because that's my desire. Because purity culture did affect my mind once I got saved, and then I started going to church, and all these thoughts and ideas were swirling around in the culture, right? And so I entered marriage, and it's like churchianity teaches you your sexuality is shameful and you can't trust your feelings, and then they complain about divorce rates. So freedom to enjoy sexuality and to have emotional connection are essential for romantic love. And there are two things that churchianity attacks all the time. Mm-hmm. And so then what's left? Oh, you're supposed to be in a dutiful marriage where you don't cheat on your spouse. So basically, they're just teaching people how to be married and miserable. And I have been able to have some conversations with Jesus and figure out his heart. And guess what? He doesn't want us to be married and miserable. He wants, not only does he want us to understand the marriage we have with him is completely filled with joy and ecstasy and bliss. And that's our eternal reward. So we have so much to look forward to in terms of a dream relationship that's bringing all the hopes and desires that we have for all eternity. I believe that. But, maybe that has something to do with how we relate to our spouses in this world too. Maybe we can have a little taste of that enjoyment, So yeah. So let's see. So I talked about it being kind of like taboo. Let me see, connect with my notes here. Yeah, I think I said all this. Yeah, so romantic love, in my opinion, is a big deal. It's a big deal. I know it gets mocked. I was listening to a liberation theologian yesterday on Facebook mocking it. He was trying to sell us on. He was actually saying something really radical, like God doesn't even want to have a relationship with us. So I'm like, okay, that's just crazy. But he was mocking it and saying God doesn't want to date you. Okay, so I know that there's critics to this perspective, and I'm okay with that because I have known this in my heart. So you know what you know in your heart, when it's your heart, it's your heart. So I'm going to continue to pursue the whole thing that I really believe romantic love is a big deal. And I think that we're all invited to think about it, care about it, whether or not we are in a romantic relationship or not, because we can know God. We can know God in a very romantic way. And it doesn't even matter, like, if you see God as a man, I mean, God is spiritual. Okay. So it's not about that. It's not about being like, well, Jesus is a man. I hear this critique, I can't relate to Jesus as my husband because I'm a man. So it doesn't work for me. And I get that. I think men have to, you know, work through that because we're talking about this Holy Spirit. Okay. And the Holy Spirit has attributes that are feminine and masculine. And let's just dive in. Let's dive in and let the Spirit teach us something from our own heart. It doesn't have to come out of my mouth. God can show you something we've never seen before. So, okay. So let's look at the Greek words for love. And I'm glad Jeremiah's here because he knows a lot of stuff that is really helpful maybe to contribute to this conversation. Because what I learned from Jeremiah on Monday is the New Testament was seeped in the Greek culture, the Hellenistic culture, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, put your mic on. I might need you here to chime in. And so that showed me something I hadn't seen before. And it showed me that I need to be a respecter of the influences of the culture, not only in the New Testament canon and the way that it was influencing Paul and the apostles at that time and how they were dealing with the born again people, and then the influences that they had from the culture they had come from. But also it gives me perspective for now as well, because I'm not a fan of how, I'll say it this way, how I believe bibliolatry has encouraged us to be like stay focused on the culture of the Bible. And I think what we need to be is aware that we live in a culture now, and then we live from our new heart and we apply wisdom and understanding as we try to encourage one another in developing a grace mindset, while realizing there's cultural influences around us. So anyway, so going back to the Greek words for love, okay? Because this is where we get, you know, you're really familiar with the concept of agape love. When people talk about God's love, they say it's agape love, and then they go all into its sacrificial love. It pretty much sounds like a bland, like, all right, fine, I'll love you type of love. That's how it's been. That's how I perceive people teach it. And it's like, all right, okay, fine. I'll love people with that agape love because Jesus does. And I want to put more seasoning on God than that because he is very seasoned. And so basically agape love, how I'm going to express it is unconditional divine love. Okay, so yes, unconditional. Because why? Because we're not under the law. We're under grace. So there you go. There's no conditions to this love. It just is. So there's some other words for love too. So we have philia, I think I'm saying that right, which is friendship love, brotherly love, storge, which I hope I'm saying that right. Jeremiah, chime in if my Greek is wrong.
I think it's right.
Okay. Which is family love. And then we have eros, which is passion. Okay, so there's these different types of love. C.S. Lewis played with this. He wrote a book about it. He did his best to describe how he interprets like the different types of love. I think there's some wisdom and insights that he came to that are helpful. I don't think it's the whole picture though. I think we need to keep investigating who God is as love. And it's my firm belief that agape love isn't the full description of who God is as love. And I'm going to introduce us today to my opinion, which is that eros love is sourced from God. It's not some sort of like separate thing that's only for humans. Okay, and I want to explore that with you. So I believe Jesus is our husband lover, eros, our friend, philia, brother, storge, if I said that correctly, and our agape lover, which is unconditional and divine love. So I think in Christ, we have every way that love can express itself. We have that in him, which is amazing, right? You get Jesus and all of a sudden you have your best friend, your best lover, your best brother. I mean, you name it. He's everything to you. So that's pretty amazing for those of us who have been unloved by the people who were meant to fill those roles in our life, that there is hope. There's hope to know that love. I mean, for me, that's just so encouraging. It's like I didn't miss the boat because I have Jesus now. I can know all the love. It's not dependent on this person in my life showing that to me anymore. I can let them go, let them be free, and be like, okay, God, you'll show me the love that I need. All right, so let's talk about how our thoughts about eros, this passionate, erotic love, have been influenced. So first of all, let's realize that eros is a mythological figure. So you're probably familiar with him as Cupid, right? Apparently the love child between Aphrodite and the god of war, which I forget his name in Greek mythology.
I think it's Aries, right? The God of
Oh,
War. I
okay.
think so. I think so.
Thank you. So apparently, when the in the Greek mind, when the god of love and the god of war have a baby, they have this mischievous little arrow shooting baby that goes around and ignites limerence in people's hearts. So apparently, that's what's going on there in the Greek mind. So this god is the god of passionate love, desire, and attraction. Cupid, right? So he represents raw creative power of love and fertility. In philosophy and psychology, the term refers to erotic love, desire, and the libido or life preserving instincts. Okay, so we're familiar with those ideas. They're floating around. If you look at philosophy and you look at Plato, he viewed Eros as a profound force that can propel the soul from desiring physical beauty to appreciating higher spiritual beauty. So I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of jiving with that. That's kind of interesting that we're looking at it like a spiritual. There's like a spiritual thing to it. So there's something there. If you look at Freud and psychology, we have Eros as a life instinct, the sum of desires for self-preservation, pleasure, and sexual energy, often contrasted with thanatos, which is the death instinct. So I think that's really interesting because it's my experience with Christian thought that that's their mindset with Eros, which comes from Freud. So I'm like, maybe we need to relook at some things here. Because I don't know about you, I'm not a Freud fan. So then if we go to Christian theology, it's defined as a desiring love or ascending love, which seeks the good, the beautiful, and union with the beloved. Okay, now we're starting to talk about some things that I'm aligning with. While the word eros does not appear in the New Testament, likely due to its association with lust in the surrounding Greco-Roman culture, its themes are central to both biblical literature and later theological development. So I think that's a really important point. If we ask ourselves, why isn't Eros talked about in the New Testament? I think that's a really interesting perspective to consider, that there may have been a resistance to it, considering how seeped in sexual immorality the surrounding cultures were. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean we're not allowed to talk about it, but maybe it was the wisdom of the apostles at the time to maybe focus elsewhere. And maybe it's the wisdom of God right now to focus on it. Because maybe this is how the Lord wants to say, I see y'all sitting over there thinking about sex, and I see y'all thinking about shame whenever you think about it, because you've been told by the Christian church how wrong it is. And so maybe it's time we, add a new narrative to the conversation. So the Spirit moves where the Spirit wants to move. Those are my perspectives. Okay, so if you look at the biblical foundations, so now we're talking about the Old Testament, and where are we landing? The Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, which is why we're here, right? So Song of Songs is the primary biblical portrayal of Eros, using vivid, sensual imagery to celebrate the physical and emotional desire between a husband and wife. And then in the marriage covenant, Christian thought generally views Eros as a God-given gift to be expressed exclusively within marriage. It is seen as a sacramental reflection of the passionate, elective love God has for his people. So that's where I align in my mind. I do believe that it is a God-given gift, and you will have this expression of passion from the heart. Yes, there is a libido involved, and I want to talk more about that in a minute. And I don't think that they are. I think they work together. So now, if I want to look at some Christian thought, two different views that have, I want to look at the relationship between Eros and agape love. Okay. Because the most significant debate in Christian thought concerns the relationship between Eros, desire, and agape, selfless, sacrificial love. So one view is the conflict view. So a Lutheran theologian named Anders Nygren famously argued that eros and agape are fundamentally opposed. And I don't know about you guys, but that's what I'm hearing in the current narrative.
Mhm.
You too?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this view is what's most commonly accepted by the common Christian thought. So he defined eros as egocentric and human, while agape is divine and unmotivated by the value of the recipient. I think those are really, really important points that we could probably actually take some time to dive into. I won't, but just, give it some thought. This idea that eros and agape are fundamentally, characteristically opposed to one another. They do not mesh like oil and water, okay? And again, considering eros as egocentric and human, okay? So negating a humanity into like something that's not holy in this view, which I think also is problematic and needs to be viewed and looked at. Well, agape is divine, unmotivated by the value of the recipient. So when you really look at those thoughts and what they're encouraging, how is that going to be helpful in a marriage relationship where there's sexual desire and love and emotional expression, and then you're telling somebody that their sexual desire is not compatible with their spiritual desire of unconditional love for their spouse? How does that make a marriage work? I just think it's extremely flawed, if I haven't already kind of given hint to my view on that. And we really, really need to identify this view and how much it is influencing our current thought. So anyway, so interestingly, I found a Catholic view helpful, and it's called the unity view. And it's let's see, it's from Pope Benedict XVI. So he argued that the two cannot be separated. He taught that eros must be purified by agape so it does not degenerate into mere sex or selfishness, but agape also needs eros to maintain warm and connected to human experience. Now, in my opinion, we're getting somewhere with that perspective.
May I
Yes,
say something? So really
absolutely.
interesting. Um, so this person, the one you just talked about here, he was kind of saying that eros and agape can't really be separated, right?
The first view I said, which
Yeah.
was Nygren.
Okay. So what's interesting is, and pardon me because I'm kind of rusty on this, but agape and agapo, they actually used to be used synonymously with eros before the New Testament. So it wasn't until the New Testament that those words took on a different meaning, but they really were just they were agape and agapo were used to express sexual love too. But then the New Testament kind of took that word and transformed it. So this person that you're talking about here, I think they're probably onto something with that, saying that they can't be separated, because I'm not sure that they were. I think that maybe that came later, but but not initially, like the separation of them. It's just a thought, because I was like, I know that those were synonymous, but I totally like, I don't know. It's really interesting. I'm really interested in what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, take my word or leave it. That's up to y'all how much you want to trust me and my indwelling relationship with Jesus. But Jesus has revealed to me that eros comes from him, that he's the God of eros, and there is no separating eros from agape love.
Hmm.
So that's why I want to bring these thoughts, because I've had that personal revelation, and it's cool to find others have seen it as well in the past.
Yeah. So it's just it's more recent. So it looks like those words were actually linked together before. So do you think like doctrinal differences, human uncomfortability, fear of
Yeah.
sin, that's kind
Yep.
of what's sliced eros away from agape? Like, I wonder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This the sinful prudery is, I believe, sinful, and I think something God showed me was like, I am not a prude. Jesus is not a prude. Because what is it? What is prudery? It is like being shocked by something sexual. Do you think that God who created sex would have that attitude? So this is a man-made value. It's a man-made attitude. It's fear-based. It's shame-based. Probably
Mhm.
goes back to the garden when they realized they were naked. They weren't thinking about it before. I'm sure they were having lots of great sex. And all of a sudden, sin comes in. They're ashamed. Who told you you were naked? I think this all goes back to the root of our sinful, like the power of sin,
Mhm.
perverting something that God intended to be beautiful and express himself. So thanks, Jeremiah. Let me know if you have any more thoughts, because I think this is a really important, really, really important conversation. So, spiritual and mystical eros. So, beyond human relationships, Christian mystics have often used the language of eros to describe the soul's intense longing for God. So, I jive with that because I've been talking to y'all about that a lot, right? So, mystical union, figures like St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila utilized erotic metaphors to express the soul's desire for the divine. So, I'm not the only one who sees God like this, which is cool. Because when what you're seeing and understanding and awakening to in your heart, you're kind of like a voice in the wilderness, and then you find saints of old who are like, oh yeah, they were saying something similar. It's really comforting. That's a cool thing about Christian history. Um, and then lastly, theology of the body. Modern thought, particularly John Paul II's theology of the body, views Eros as a devotional vehicle that draws humans toward the good, the true, and beautiful, ultimately pointing towards God. Okay, that is something that I sit really well with that thought. So, yeah, I really think we need to reinvestigate what we've been told, what we've been believing, and the boundaries that people have put on who God is as love, and the reality that Eros is very powerful, and so maybe it makes people uncomfortable to talk about it. So let's just leave it out. Just don't talk about it, and then I don't have to deal with it. Why do you think Song of Songs isn't taught about much, right? Because the reality is, romantic love, when it really comes to a heart consummation with another soul, I mean, what's more powerful? And honestly, when you think about it, that's really what, at the end of the day, we have with Jesus Christ when we come one with his spirit. So I really think we need to continue to dive in freely without shame to what we're looking at here, because when we're talking about union with Jesus, we're talking about being consummated with his spirit. It's not a coincidence that makes you think of sexual things.
Mhm.
And and we can talk about that freely without I mean, you can be embarrassed if you're shy about it. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's certainly no shame involved with it. So hopefully that's some food for thought about Eros love. So let me know in the comments, or Jeremiah, if you have anything that comes to mind. I want to talk more about that if y'all are inspired too. So let's get on to today's word from the Song of Songs, from verse 4-9. So it says, "For you reach into my heart with one flash of your eyes. I am undone by your love. My beloved, my equal, my bride. You leave me breathless. I am overcome by merely a glance from your worshiping eyes. For you have stolen my heart. I am held hostage by your love and by the graces of righteousness shining upon you." So, wow, how romantic, right? Isn't that a good verse right in time for Valentine's Day? So let's look at what's going on here. So we've talked a good amount about how he extols her dove's eyes. We've talked how he loves her eyes, and now he's pretty much talking about getting lost in her eyes, and how her eyes have an effect on him. And what a thought! I just want to take a minute and let that sink in. Have you ever thought to yourself that you looking at Jesus makes him feel emotionally overwhelmed? Can you even imagine that God could go there in his emotions for you? Or is he he's always got it handled, like the modern man, cool. I'm the rock. I'm the emotional rock. I'm immovable. Girl, you do your emotional thing. I got you. I'll be here, cool as a cucumber. I mean, is that God? Is he just all the time an emotional rock, immovable in his inner world? maybe we need to ask those questions. Is that really who he is? Because what I'm seeing here, and granted, this is the TPT translation, and so I'm going with the heart of the TPT translation. I'm very comfortable with this idea, though, because I don't know about y'all, but if you've ever actually seen a man in love, there's a lot going on there, and he is not an immovable, cool as a cucumber rock. Okay, there's a lot going on. Let me tell you this: when I married my husband, for I think it was 20 minutes, I got word later that was it 20 minutes or 2 hours? I don't know. It was a length of time that he was like bawling before our wedding. And the man who was marrying us was like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you want to go through this? Like, are you having doubts?" But my husband's story is he was so overwhelmed and appreciative to be marrying me that he was flooded with emotion. He was overwhelmed with emotion. So he spent all that time before I even got to the aisle, and he even saw me just in the back room, bawling his eyes out. And I just think that is so telling. That is just a beautiful story. So, could you imagine Jesus bawling his eyes out because he's so thankful and so in love with you? And when you look at him and he sees your faith and he sees your honor and he sees your trust in him, that he would have an emotional response to that? How dare you think something like that of God? But maybe dare you to think it.
No, I think that's I love that we've talked about that in the Song of Songs study, but what we've missed in churchianity is when we do strip the personality away from God and we come up with this idea that he always does have it together. He just always has the answer, always is just cool and collected. And he's not like that. He's emotional. And he may, we've talked about kind of how he's multifaceted. Like he'll tell you exactly who he is, but at the same time, he's a person with feelings and he knows the truth about himself. Like, he can tell you, he can give you like his divine resume, but then he's a person and there's a personality in there too. And the two are not, one doesn't cancel the other out. And he's very emotional. He's very, very, very emotional. He speaks when he's emotional, and he kind of pours out what he's feeling a little bit. And we have that in the scriptures. He was okay with that vulnerability. He wanted to show that part of himself. If he didn't want to show that part of himself, he wouldn't have recorded it, and he would have just been, every time he speaks, it's like, "Thus saith the Lord," very emotionless, dry response, and everything is facts all the time, and everything is just like, "Here's exactly what we're going to do because I know everything," and he just doesn't portray himself that way. He just doesn't. He's okay with people seeing the personality in there, and really, if God is the source of humankind, then he's the source of all emotions. So we would get that from him. He didn't invent emotions exclusively for humans, and he would have passed that on to us. We would have versions of what already existed. So that's my thoughts on it. I think your mic is muted, Danny.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was saying,
I
I love your thoughts. Amen, amen, amen. Romans 5:5 says he pours his love into our heart. So if he's having these emotions, he's pouring them into our heart, then we're now one with God and his feelings. And now we're knowing his love for someone, and we're experiencing the extreme emotion. I mean, it can be overwhelming how much love God has. And if you've been in love with someone, then you've been acquainted with the intensity of that type of thing. So here we are right here looking at this lover with one flash of your eyes. I'm undone by your love. So it's as if he's saying, "Do you know what you do to me?" Like, are you aware that when you look at me, what it does to me on the inside? Yeah, I want us to think about these things because this is the reality of what happens in love. And I mean, do we have any idea how much love he has for us? Do we know? I heard a popular Christian singer come out with a new song today, and he was singing all about like, "Even though I'm like this, and even though I'm like this, I can't believe you still love me. All these little things about me, and I can't believe you still love me." I'm like, man, we have got to elevate this story. Like, God's like, oh, guys, it's not like that. It's like, do you have any idea how in love I am with you?
Mm-hmm.
But because you have been trained in the thinking of the world, it's surprising to you. Like, but what he wants us to be very comfortable with with his regard.
Hmm. I,
So,
I,
yeah, go ahead.
I love what you said. I'll just say it really quickly. Something that's really stuck with me from this study is you were talking about how Christians get together and beg God to like them with their
Mhm.
songs. It's like that is
Yeah.
such a miss of God. Like when they do
Mhm.
that, they just haven't they haven't
Yeah.
experienced him, because you don't need to beg God
Yeah.
to like you. He's so far beyond that. He's over the top, if anything, with love. He's probably overwhelming with love, begging him to
Yes.
like you. I mean, my goodness.
He's way ahead
Yeah.
as far as like, he doesn't need to be like, please look at me. Do you even know I exist? He's like, oh man, I've been trying to get your attention. I'll never forget this one day I had this spiritual moment with the Spirit, and I was listening to something, and all of a sudden I had this intense experience. Like God came out and was like trying to grab me, like in love. Like he was just like crazy about me. And he was like, I love your soul. And I got so overwhelmed, and I asked him to go away because it was like way too much for me. But I got a glimpse. I got a glimpse in that moment, even though I couldn't take it. And that's the thing, like you can't take his love. Like he has to mature us to be able to handle his love because it is so intense. And I got a little taste of that day, and I realized that he is yearning to like pour his love on me, and he took that little moment to kind of give me a glimpse of it because I think he wanted to teach me something really important, but also relieve himself. Like I just want to like hold you. And that's not to say like we're not in union and there's not peace and all that, but I'm telling you, there's this eros love going on with God, and
Hmm.
that is a different type of expression of love. But hopefully you can believe my story there. I don't make these things up. So anyway, um let's see. So it says, for you reach into my heart with one flash of your eyes. So let us be aware that wherever attention goes, energy flows. So there is something spiritual happening when she is looking at him. Her spirit and his, there's a connection there. There's energy. And this is true of our human relationships too. So where you put your attention is powerful. And that's why we're told in the New Testament to keep our eyes on Jesus. There's a lot of wisdom to that. So, okay, so I'm going to get into some stuff that I want to try to understand, which is like the spiritual dynamic of love. And I want to caution against accusing me of like being new age, because I've heard that complaint before. It's not like that. Like, there's literal, like, this is a spiritual thing. Okay. We have a spiritual connection with God. We're spiritual people. That means there's energy outflowing. It's like a spiritual source. Okay. Like, that's real. And you can just try to put it in like the little topic area of like, oh, new age, but the reality is like you have to come to the understanding that we have spiritual power. Okay, we have spiritual electricity, spiritual life. Like, we've been trying to talk about this for a while and trying to get people to understand like the Bible may not be alive, but we are alive. Okay, I'm talking about true spiritual power that literally comes from the heart. And like there's stuff going on there when it comes to where you're putting that power. So it's like their spirits are touching in his inner world. So she's looking at him, and there's like an electricity and like a consummation, and like they're like meeting, okay, inside the heart. And it's such a powerful connection because there's so much love there that he just gets overwhelmed. So this is mutual recognition. It's a deep understanding of one another. This is being known. This is making love to one's soul instead of their body. This is soul mating. Okay. So when you look at someone's eyes and you have a deep connection and you know them in the heart and you know one another and you're known, like there's a reason people talk about soulmates. Okay. That can happen. That's a connection with someone that can be very romantic and incredibly profound and meaningful. And I'm not saying we go around experiencing that with other people. It's special. It's something special. That's why we have marriage. It's a special connection that it is usually reserved for one person. But hey, we're talking about romantic relationships, right? So here we are, the Eros love. So they're literally looking into one another's souls and meeting there together. So I have known Christ's deep inward gaze. Like his pupils dilate to express his total focus on me and attraction for me, revealing I'm the apple of his eye. Where would I get an idea like that? That is actually a Hebrew phrase. Maybe you've heard it before. Maybe you've heard that you're the apple of God's eye. Um, and what does that mean? It describes the close relationship between God and his people. So, knowing myself as the apple of his eye means I'm particularly cherished, loved, and protected. So, it's just really amazing when we dive into understanding this Eros love, how it opens our minds to understand this specific love, this particular love that God has for each of his people, each of us individually, that is full of desire. It says, I desire you, I choose you, you're cherished to me. This is a cherishing love. This is an emotional love. This is an enjoyable love. This is a blissful love. It's just it's really important for us to grasp the reality of this love and realize, like, the bland love we've been served up as, like, everything's sacrificial and there's nothing beneficial for you to receive in the experience is actually, like, not the whole story. Because God, Jesus Christ, he came to rescue his bride. John the Baptist introduced him that way. He said, I am getting out of the way for the bridegroom. Okay. And so Jesus is the bridegroom, and he came to rescue his bride, and he gave sacrificial love to do everything required. He's the greatest hero of all time. He's the prince of all the Disney princes. Like, he's like the legit real deal hero. And there is absolutely something in it for him. The love that he experiences for us, with us, the union, the pleasure, there's a lot of pleasure for God that he gets from us. And we also get pleasure from him. So this is a very enjoyable relationship. And that's all coming from Eros love. So his gaze literally pierces my soul. It's supernatural. He can look at you and go inside of you. And it's like the entire world around you fades out, and you only know complete communion together with him in the heart. Okay? So you're together in the heart. It's oneness of heart. It's true intimacy. So, yes. So did you have anything to say, Jeremiah, before I go on?
No.
Okay. So it says, reaching into his heart with one flash of your eyes in the verse, right? So this is real. And this is why when you choose to look at him rather than other things that could take your attention, he is honored. Okay, so he's honored when you look at him, and he gets to experience the acknowledgement of your affection for him. That does something to God's heart. That's pleasurable to him. For you reach into my heart with one flash of your eyes. I am undone by your love, my beloved, my equal, my bride. So the love for him expressed through her eyes undoes him. She is so sincerely in love with him, and him seeing that in her eyes as an expression of her true feelings for him impacts him so deeply that he is undone by her love. Her love for him literally makes him weak and vulnerable. She moves his soul. So she sparks the love that is within him. So I want us to notice that he already has this love in him, and then it's like aroused by her. So he is the vessel of love. So his movement to be overwhelmed by emotion shows what a deep lover he is. It shows how much love he has in his heart. He is full of love. So when you look at him and he's overwhelmed with love for you, that creates a lot of trust, because you realize this is a very loving person, and their very core, their very nature, their very reality of who they are is love. And the fact that he would allow himself to engage with me in a way where he would allow his heart to be flooded with love and emotion, overwhelming him. What does that say about him and how much love he has to give and who he is as a lover? that he's fearless to express his heart, that he's willing to express his heart, that he's willing to be vulnerable. That's very strong. That's a very powerful person. That's very powerful. Um, Maybe you can contrast it, like to try to understand better what I'm saying is, if you go to someone to love them and they shrink back, they close off their heart and put up a wall, do you view that as strong and powerful? That may be the narrative that the flesh would say to you, like, oh, they're so strong, they don't let anyone in their heart, they're all walled up. But is that true strength, or is true strength a willingness to have a connection that would make that person have feelings and engagement in someone else's soul? That's true strength. And that's what Jesus offers all of us, because he is strong enough. His heart is big enough to handle everything. Like, let me tell you as a contrast, like how weak I am compared to Jesus. Like, there's certain people that I try to connect with, and their souls are in a place of development to where I feel like it's daggers in my heart to relate to them because of like the energy they put out of flesh, because I can sense that stuff. I guess it's like a superpower I have, I don't know. And or like their words, and I have to decide, like, I'm going to have boundaries with that person and not allow them into my heart because it hurts me too much. It's too painful. It's too painful. So then I want to have connections with people because I long for that. And so I look for safe people. That's one of the reasons I'm friends with Jeremiah. He's very safe. He's very kind. He's very respectful. Like, never once have I felt a dagger in my heart in relating to him. You know, he's probably one of the most safe people I've ever met in my life, honestly. People give you so much trouble, Jeremiah, and I'm over here going, what in the world? So that's, but does that make me strong? I mean, I'm strong at having boundaries. But think about Jesus, okay? He is willing to have a relationship with anybody who's willing, okay? And it doesn't matter how sloppy your thinking is or how much flesh you're struggling with, he can take it. And I just think that's a remarkable thing to acknowledge about Jesus, because I can't take it. Like, there's certain people I try to connect with, and I am just like, no way. It hurts my heart way too much. I can't do it. But God is so forgiving and so strong that he is willing to have a connection with you, even if you are very reckless in how much flesh you're struggling with. So I just want to acknowledge Jesus in that way. I think it's incredible. Do you have any thoughts, Jeremiah, before I go on?
Oh no, I really agree. So like when you were talking about the flesh will say like the walled up, like, oh, they don't let anyone in because that's a strong person. Oh, probably not though. It's a hurt person probably, but I don't know if that's actual strength that's being projected there. It's probably more defense mechanisms that are being seen as strength. But it's interesting that the world would view that as strength, because they just have their own definitions of things, and it completely lacks any sort of spirit in it when the world like looks at these things, and they kind of respect that in a way. Like they'll look at that walled off person and say, oh yeah, they're not gonna let, that's I wish I could be like that. You don't wish you could be like that. That's a miserable existence. It's good to have boundaries, but I don't know, I think that real strength is actually exampled in Jesus versus us, like random person, not us, like us, the children of God, but us as humans, like, looking at the different ways like we decide to defend ourselves emotionally and things like that. I'm not sure that was typified for us. I think that's something that was kind of more of a trauma response that we've created, but I don't think that actually comes from the spirit. It definitely doesn't come from Christ. I think it comes from Adam. Honestly, it comes from that severance that the humans experience, that humanity experienced, that severance from the spiritual that Adam facilitated on our behalf. Thank you, Adam. By the way, that was, yeah, but no, like really, that's what I think that's a product of that, a product of severance from God's sins introduction. All of that is where you get this. Now you have these creatures that have these emotions, and emotions come from the spirit, but yet they have no connection to the spirit. So what do they do with these emotions? It's like, so then they're trying to be a manager of things they don't really understand, and you get all these awful products that follow that. And I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, I love how you take us into a deep dive, and then I get all these thoughts. You're very inspiring. I think that's really important, and I will speak for those who who do have boundaries, because I've suffered a lot of abuse. I was abused in my family of origin. My marriage has had some abuse in it, and just living in the world, there is endless abuse. I mean, just being on the internet, there's just people just throwing daggers, accusations, false statements about you. I mean, we live in a very abusive world, and so there's wisdom actually to having boundaries, and that's something that the Holy Spirit has personally expressed to me. His big desire for us to have boundaries, and so I definitely want to acknowledge that, because just as a person who needs them essentially, but as like a pure reality, like if you want to think of heaven, what it will be like, we will not be afraid of one another. We will not be shrinking back in fear because we're afraid someone's going to use us, abuse us, or isn't trusting, or isn't trustworthy. I mean, all these things that we look at each other like, are you safe? We're navigating, like, are you safe? Are you going to accept me? Are you going to reject me? Like, we're always asking those questions from people. We will not have that fear anymore. We can engage with like total love and connection and freedom. It's going to be really nice. But it's nice when we can find little glimpses of it here in our relationships. So being in love with someone actually reveals your own loving heart to you. So let me say that again. Being in love with someone actually reveals your own loving heart to you. Okay, the fact that you can fall in love with someone means that you have a heart that's capable of falling in love with someone. Mm-hmm. And it says to you that you're a lover. And so Eros love makes the object of your affection occupy your mind, and there's a desire for physical consummation of that love. There's a physical desire to long to be with that person, which that's what makes Eros different than like the other kinds of love, like family love and brotherly love, because there isn't that compulsion. You're like content to hang out and you enjoy each other, but like there's something specific about this romantic love where there's like wanting to take that next step to have that physical union, because it in the heart. And so that's like a desire that wants to come, is I want to have that physical union, which I think speaks to the spiritual union we have with Jesus and how he wanted physical union with us. It wasn't good enough for him to be outside. I think it was Mary he told that to, like, I have something better coming. I'm gonna be able to come inside of you. I think that's him speaking as that Eros husband lover. He wanted that physical union consummation spiritually with us. So there are innumerable facets that capture his heart when he looks at her. I mean, he really appreciates her and enjoys her. And I think this idea of being captivated is really important as we understand God's mind towards us. And also as we understand how we operate as lovers and falling in love and being captivated by a person and the different qualities they have that just really we just love about them. We just love them. We just love their qualities. So notice in this particular verse, he calls her his love, his beloved, his equal, which I think is really important to highlight, and his bride. So, I mean, I'll tell you guys, like, it's one thing for me to sit here and say these things and speak the words, but it's another thing to actually know these revelations in your heart and the depth of the emotion that it awakens. And that's something that is between you and the Spirit. And that's just going to hit everybody in their own unique way. And I know that I'm speaking to some babies in the faith and some children in the faith, and we're at different places in our relationship with Jesus. So there's no expectations as far as, feeling this in the heart, but it's very profound. And there's times when, and a lot of times Jesus romances me through song, and there's just a particular way that certain songs can like phrase something with the music going along with it that can just hit me really deep and like impress upon me the power of the message. So all that to say, like, being called someone's love, being called someone's beloved, and they're equal. I mean, huge, huge respect with that, by the way. Partnership and their bride. Like, imagine Jesus saying those words to you. It's just incredibly, incredibly powerful. It's an incredibly powerful identity. So I want to acknowledge that she has been positioned in his heart. So she's seated there in the seat of his desire. Okay. He has given her purpose in his life. She is the queen of his heart. So he's moved by her. It's very powerful to live in someone's heart, and what that does as far as inspiring them, being loved by them when you're apart or together or apart. It's like an undying love. It's like an unforgettable love. I mean, when someone makes residence in your heart, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And that's exactly the kind of love we have with God. So I just want to introduce us to these ideas, but my hope is that you'll be overwhelmed by the power of the message for you personally and how loved you truly are. So I want to speak this note that I have in the TPT Bible. So it says, "Or you have ravished my heart," which is also language that's used with this verse. This is the Hebrew word. I'm not even going to attempt that. It comes from a Hebrew word, which is taken from the Semitic root word that means to tear bark off of a tree. He is saying that your loving eyes of worship have uncovered his heart and laid it bare, making him vulnerable to you. What a description of what happens to Jesus when he looks into your eyes. Your worship brings him to such an ecstasy and delight that it becomes hard to even imagine. Yet God has placed inside of you the ability to ravish the vulnerable heart of your King. Not someday in heaven, but now, even when you feel incomplete and weak. So let us just consider those words and what that means for your identity, that God would give you power to undo him emotionally. So he lets her have an effect on him. Okay, so he allows this. Okay, so think about Jesus when he wept at Lazarus's tomb. Think about when he allowed Mary to pour extravagant love on him in a public situation. I mean, that would embarrass most pastors if one of their congregants had such overwhelming love for them that she decided to lay it all bare right in front of him and cry and rub his feet with her hair and pour expensive oil. Like, most pastors couldn't handle the heat of that. That'd be incredibly embarrassing, that type of extravagant love.
Some translations say kissing his feet too, and
Mm-hmm.
actually the more accurate ones do. So
Yeah.
not only is there the perfume and the hair, but then yeah, I mean, look guys, it's in there. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
start that.
Yeah. So what I'm showing you is, like, Jesus is allowing this. You know, he could have had a different response. Like, we see him throwing up boundaries at other times in the documentation that we have. You know, get behind me, Satan. He didn't allow Peter to have influence on him in that moment. But with these loving expressions, he allows it. I think we need to consider that and put it in its proper respect, you know? So Jesus is willing to hold feelings. Okay? If you're a person whose soul has been healed, or maybe it wasn't ever inhibited from having feelings in the first place, and you have a lot of feelings in your heart, and you know what it feels like to just have overwhelming love or passion or grief or sorrow, like, you know that is it's very difficult. It's as difficult as it is to carry a child into full term. Like, it's heavy. You know that something good is your something of life is growing there, and you're willing to, but it's taxing, it's tiring, it's heavy, you know, it's a sacrifice. It's my belief that this is part of being a living sacrifice, to be able to let that love pour into your heart and be willing to experience those feelings. The verse talks about, before I scroll up, and I want to make sure I'm referencing this right, so I'm going to open up my scripture in my phone real quick. Just give me a moment. Okay, so the wording in the verse is, you leave me breathless. So the question I have is, have you ever had your, love take your breath away? Have you ever had love take your breath away? I want to share a personal experience with you, and you can receive it if you'd like to believe me. It's always vulnerable to share personal experiences and then get doubters come at you. But I'm like, I'll share it anyway. I'll be brave. So I was at church one time, and Jesus was there, and he's always in me, but sometimes he wants to give you a special revelation. So he can appear without, in the spiritual realm, like you can see visions. And I was walking down the hall, and all of a sudden I heard, "Here I am, your husband." It came from behind me. And it literally sucked the breath out of me. And I just remember being like, and I just stopped because I just knew I had his spirit. Everything was there. It wasn't just words. It was like the whole spirit, everything, just my heart activated. And it was really, really intense. And it literally took my breath away. And so I've experienced that with Jesus and the power of him. He told me, "Here I am, your husband." How could that not take my breath away? It was just really, really amazing. So anyway, but you don't need to have a personal revelation from Jesus saying, "Here I am, your husband," to have your breath taken away. Lovers, as tales old as time, experiencing the power of love can have that type of effect on a person. So in the scripture, it's beautiful that it says, "You leave me breathless. I am overcome by merely a glance of your worshiping eyes." Notice they're worshiping. He talks about, "For you have stolen my heart." So we hear that a lot in the romantic world. What does that mean? By the way, Jeremiah, are you good on going over, or should I wrap it up?
I can go a little over. I got a few things I got to do this afternoon, but I can go a little bit because I know you had a lot of thoughts. It's up to you. I definitely can go a little over.
Okay, what's little for you? What's your max? Because I want to know how to decide when to stop.
Probably 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll see how much I can do in the next 10 minutes.
I don't want to pressure you to compress it though or anything.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I want to talk about, I'll do my best. I'm definitely respecting your time. So what does it mean to have your heart stolen? So falling deeply in love with someone, being completely captivated, like they've moved into your heart and mind, so it's as if it belongs to them now because your heart is devoted to them. Some people say, "I can't get you off my mind." It implies it implies that a person has charmed or mesmerized you, making you feel profound admiration or romantic love. It is a metaphor for losing control over your emotions to someone. So again, extreme emotional expression being expressed here in this verse. He says, "I am held hostage by your love and by the graces of righteousness shining upon you." So held hostage, again, totally captivated. Imagine, you walk into a room and there's just this look, like mesmerized, right? That's kind of what's going on there. So she's not a simple song to him. She's a symphony. She turns on all the lights. She turns on all the music. There's a lot going on there with him. So just, do you believe God has feelings for you? We hear that language a lot. I have feelings for you. Does God have feelings for you? So do you believe his feelings are true? Does emotion come from God's heart, or is he just all logical? Is he just all matter of fact? What is this God like? And if God has emotions and feelings, then what does that mean for your spirit? If your heart and your spirit is bonded to his, then what does that mean for you and what your spirit is like? And wouldn't your feelings and emotions be true? If you're feeling love and joy and sorrow and anger, who's to say your feelings don't tell the truth? I hear that language all the time. It's just become instilled in our mindsets, but are we questioning what that means? If you tell somebody I'm sad and they say your feelings aren't true, does that even logically make sense? Of course it doesn't. If you're sad, you're sad. That's a fact. Actually, your feelings are facts. Your feelings are facts, but your thoughts may not be facts. So we've actually flipped this narrative upside down to say our thoughts are facts and our feelings are not. But it's the opposite.
Mhm.
Your feelings are facts. Your feelings are the most trustworthy because it's undeniable that what you're feeling is true. Yet what needs investigation is what is the thought? And is that rooted in truth? That may not be rooted in truth. So in order to wrap this up, let's see a few more things. So I want us to see the back and forth expressions of love that are going on here. Okay, so it's not like it's not one-sided. This is mutual love making. This is mutual affection. They're both enjoying one another. So one's not a receiver, one's not a giver. It's give and take. They're just both. It's making love. Imagine making love to your spouse and they're just laying there. Like that'd be so not enjoyable. With your relationship with God is meant to be both enjoyment on both sides at the same time, giving to one another. So I think it's really important that we highlight that because another narrative does float around with people who don't understand God's love and especially haven't given themselves the freedom to look into God having eros love, which honestly, it took courage for me to be even willing to look into all this stuff. And it was definitely inspired by the Holy Spirit. And so I can understand why people stay away from it. But there's a lot to discover here. So this verse shows us a remarkable truth that not only does Jesus receive our love, he is affected by it emotionally so deeply that it overwhelms him. He lets himself be moved in his emotions for us. He lets his passion influence him. So, we've talked about this before, but what they've told you about emotions is most likely rooted in shame thinking instead of God's mind. So we need to continue to question everything we're hearing about emotional counsel and really question if that's what the Spirit of God is saying to you, because we don't want to be bound up with things that aren't coming from the freedom of his love and life. So you were created with an emotional spirit. You never outgrow emotions. Having a godly spirit means you know God's emotions. You are a sensitive heart, and it means you will grow to be more emotional as you live from your new heart, not less. So they are lying to you that emotions are weakness or immature. Hard, numb hearts know nothing of bearing love's emotions. And that's what you need to understand. Like, people literally may not understand if they don't have a soft heart, because people with soft hearts are the ones who experience emotions. So you need to get to know who you're listening to. So God himself gets overwhelmed by his emotions, and this is the truth. You won't hear this from most because they don't see it. They aren't listening to the Spirit to learn what's true. They are depending on worldly doctrine instead of insight. They don't trust the finished work of Christ in them to receive and learn directly from their own new creation heart. They don't rely upon the greatest gift to mankind, the Spirit of God in their own spirit. So they do not understand the things of God that one can only get directly from his source. So this is the God-rooted truth. There's nothing wrong with your emotions. Your emotions are not lying, and they are from your spirit, not without. They are expressing God's heart and mind. You are a new creation with new heart and emotions. So be set free from the lies that there's nothing wrong. Be set free from the lies and know there's nothing wrong with your feelings. You have new creation emotions. So listen to them with honor. Ask them, what are you saying? They carry a message you don't want to miss. And know this, love life with Jesus gets better and better. And so that's a wrap for me.
Awesome. No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing that with us. You're right. It does take a lot of courage to go in that direction, and I think that is why so many shrink back. A lot of the directions we go in take a lot of courage, and they do. And it's just it's not. It is something that I think. I think what we found when we present stuff like this is we see that not only do they shrink back, but they want us to stop too, and that's very interesting to me. So the fear is like, not only are they afraid to go there, but they're afraid if anybody goes there. They might hear something that just, blows up their theology or whatever, their deeply held traditional beliefs or something. It just isn't compatible. And it's, guys, I think that we'll find that God is much different, much larger than what religion has told us about. I really think so. I think they're in for a big surprise, is what I would say. So, But no, thanks for tuning in, guys. Really, really appreciate it. Danny, thanks for the study. It was, I don't know,
Welcome.
just love it. Absolutely love getting on here with you guys. So we will see you probably next Wednesday. We'll confirm at some point, but probably next Wednesday or something. We'll see. We'll see you next week at some point. We'll be on here, but of course we'll be posting throughout the week too. So